Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well out there. Today I want to talk about a little victory that I was able to achieve for local bikers to me, and also it's to highlight how you fix problems in this world. If there are things that you don't like, well, there are things you can do that will actually help and things you can do which won't. Namely, going on social media and complaining about something never solves a problem, but going to the right people and asking the right questions does. So what I'm referring to here is to do with motorcycle helmets and being asked to take them off when you go to a petrol station. Now, my local petrol station, which is a Euro Garage Esso, one of the three that's available to me, different brands of each, never used to ask motorcyclists to take their helmets off, and I've used this garage for more than 15 years. And that's one of the reasons I used them, is because they didn't ask people to take their helmets off. For context, I used to run a petrol station for about 3 years on the same road, quite a few years ago now, to be fair, but you know, I've dealt with the same issues, I've worked in the industry. Before I get into the story that will explain like my reasoning behind this, I just want to make it clear that because I've made videos on this subject in the past, I am very well aware of the fact that some people are like, just take your helmet off. If you wish to take your helmet off when requested, you can do that. If you want to give your fingerprints, your blood samples, pictures, your documentation, anything, if you want to supply that when you fill up your bike with fuel, then that's okay, you do that. But that doesn't mean that everyone else has to. So I go into the petrol station the other day, go to fill up, didn't authorise the pump, and they're saying on the tannoy to remove my helmet. So I wandered inside and I asked the cashier why. And that's all I asked along this whole way, is why? Why are you asking me to remove my helmet? Well, it's because of safety and security. Security of what? Safety for who? Security of what? Are you suggesting that I might possibly be a criminal because I have a motorcycle helmet on? Oh, no, it's just the rule. And it's like, well, why is the rule being implemented? So I politely asked, if I don't remove my helmet, are you saying you won't serve me? And they said yes. So I said, okay, fine, I won't buy fuel from you anymore. Went half a mile up the road, filled my tank without any problems. I say in the past, the other places did ask you to remove your helmet, but even they've dropped that. The reason why this is so annoying to me now is because it was annoying before, but we've had COVID for a couple of years. You know, people have been wearing masks, and I really hoped that, you know, the whole, like, you know, you go into a bank or something and you walk in and you put a mask up and you feel like you're about to rob the place. In the past, that seems so strange, but hopefully we've now come to the realisation that it's okay to not see people's faces. And there hasn't been some massive, you know, crime epidemic because of people wearing masks. Sure, there may be more crime because people are finding it times harder, but I don't think it's because they have a mask, like, oh, now I can get away with it. So anyway, continuing on with the story, I call up the manager of the store and I asked him, why are you doing this? And his response was, well, we got an email from head office. Well, at first he started trying to give me the reasons, and I said, well, sorry, where did this sort of come from? Because he was starting with the safety and security thing, and he basically talked about the fact that police are no longer dealing with drive-offs. Now, drive-offs are when someone fills their car and drives off without paying for it, either intentionally or unintentionally, car or bike, vehicle, whatever. Now, in my experience, the majority of drive-offs that we had were accidental. So what we used to do was put all the details together, call the police, they would contact that owner of that car and say, hey, did you know you filled your car up at Garage XYZ, and, you know, would you like to go and pay for it? 80% of the time, those people would indeed turn up and say, I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened, I totally forgot. And I'm like, well, on the CCTV, you filled the car up and then you got back in it and you drove off. But whatever, we got our money in the end. And there was ones that didn't. But now the police are basically not getting involved because I think they haven't got the time for it. And I'm guessing because of the cost of fuel, there's been a few more drive-offs, and as a knee-jerk reaction, the company has decided to just say, that's it. There was an email sent out, and the manager told me that, that basically asked two things. One was that car drivers should close all their doors when filling up, and bikers should remove their helmets. Now, as I say, it's the reason that's important. Car drivers needing to close all their doors. This could be because it leads them, they think that people who leave their door open are going to do drive-offs more regularly. I haven't noticed a correlation when I was doing this between drive-offs and leaving the door open, but whatever. There is an actual, real thing that can happen, which is that when you're filling your car, petrol vapours can gather in the car as they get poured out of your filler cap as you fill the tank, and can condense inside the car, and if someone has a cigarette or someone lights something, it could combust. Very rare, very unlikely, but there is a real reason to ask someone to close their doors. You know, beyond the possibilities of them being a thief, there is a real reason. With motorcycle helmets, there is absolutely no safety argument to why you should have to take it off. It's not like it's all going to fill with petrol vapours and you'll pass out. No, no. The obvious implication of motorcycle helmets is they're suggesting that we're a bunch of thieves who's going to steal fuel, and leaving our helmet on makes it much easier for us to do so. Now, I know from working in petrol stations their CCTV is rubbish, and if someone has got, you know, a pair of glasses on or something like that on that CCTV, they are going to not be that recognisable. I would have said I'm more recognisable by having a giant fish head. You know, what did the guy look like? Well, he had dark hair and was wearing sunglasses, maybe a beard, difficult to say, you know, it's a fuzzy image on the CCTV, or helmet looks like a fish. I think people are more recognisable by their gear anyway, so the point of, it just ruins all of the points. The manager actually thanked me on that phone call for calling him and asking him why, and not just abusing him, because he'd obviously been taking a lot of abuse from people in the past couple of weeks because of the rules that were implemented. And I personally think that the small amount of money that's lost through drive-offs is going to be, with bikes anyway, is going to pale into significance when you imagine how many bikes that come onto this island who, once word gets around, won't go to them anymore. They'll just go to one of the other garages that don't ask. Again, I know some of you won't have a problem with this, and that's fine, but lots of us do have an issue with it. I will get into my reasoning in just a second, as I say. So I spoke to the manager, he basically said, look, it's an email from up on high. So I said, fine, I want to speak to those people and ask them why. Gave me the head office's number, spoke to someone at head office. They basically said, well, we can't really deal with this ourselves as such here, but you could email this email address. So I did. And what I basically said in that email was that, as I've said to you here, previously there was never a reason for us to take our helmets off. On the back of COVID, it seems very silly to do this. I do understand you're currently having a problem with drive-offs and the police not dealing with them, but it feels like an over-the-top knee-jerk reaction. I personally find it quite offensive to be accused of being a thief. But on a more practical issue, when you get to the petrol station and you have to take your gloves off, you then take your helmet off, where do you put these? You know, keeping in mind that a helmet might cost you from £100 to £1,000, it could have equipment on it. And if you drop that, you have to now replace it, or at minimum it's been scratched and damaged, and it wouldn't have been had you not been asked to remove it arbitrarily for no apparent reason, or on the basis that you might steal something. As I said to them, on some bikes there is nowhere safe to put it. If you've got a big adventure bike, sure, you've got somewhere you could probably sit on the seat. On my DR there is nowhere I can put it that's particularly safe. You know, it's got no mirrors on it, it's got nowhere on the seat that I can put it, plus when I fill that bike up I need to be on the bike to make sure it's upright to fill it to the brim, because it doesn't have a fuel gauge. So that's another thing. I know some garages are asking you to get off of a bike because one dude once fell over and there was a fire. Like, is that what we do now? One person does something once, or even if it's twice, or even if it's 5 times. In the millions of times that it happens, you make that rule. That's like saying, no, we can't use planes anymore because some crash, even though we accept that cars are significantly more dangerous. So that was my point to them, was that, you know, it was on one level it was kind of offensive, and on another level it was just practically annoying. It's the same as when you go into places like Tesco's and they say, take your helmet off, and you're like, okay, so I've got a basket in this hand, helmet in this hand. Do I pick the products that I want to buy up with my teeth? Like, or do I have to do this whole thing where I'm like careful with it? And then you've got to be careful that people aren't bumping into it at trolleys and stuff, and that happens a lot. And it's all on the basis that and I've spoken to people in Tesco's before now, like security guards, and I know one of my followers in a local Tesco's, he's a security guard. They said it wasn't him that said this, just be clear, this is years ago when I tried to just walk around in there with a helmet on. They said it was intimidating to the customers. I was like, it's intimidating because I have a helmet on. All right, fine. And I just accepted that, like I accepted in banks and places like that. I still take my helmet off in banks and in big stores. You know, with the small stores, I'm like, no, I'm not taking my helmet off, I'm just going to walk around, and they haven't got a problem with that, and that's how most bikers go in there. With the big stores though, I actually have somewhere to put my helmet. I can use a trolley, put my helmet in the trolley, it's now safe from everybody, and it's convenient, and I have no problem with that. It's not like I'm trying to hide my face like I have anything to hide. I just simply don't want to be inconvenienced on the basis that because I ride a motorcycle I might be a thief. One small thing I forgot to mention, and this is when it's completely fair. Now, when it comes to age-related sales, as in buying tobacco and stuff like that, them asking you to remove your helmet to prove your age against your ID or photo ID is a valid reason to ask you to remove your helmet. Obviously, there is a borderline issue with mopeds and stuff that you don't know how old this person is, but you only have to be 16 to buy fuel, and you can't be on the road like on a moped without being 16 years old. Now, having a vehicle on the road doesn't prove your age, so I can, in some cases, and if they're young, they might want to double check that they're actually old enough to even be on the road. But with people who are on, you know, large CC bikes or, you know, who are obviously older in age, there isn't the concern of proving that they're 16. You can look at most people and be like, yeah, that dude's not 16. I mean, I'm 16 years old, okay? I've been riding illegally. Do you believe me? No, you don't. You know I'm 36. So, you see my point. So it is a fair point to say about age-related sales and needing to see your face, but that only comes to things when it's, you know, if it's alcohol, tobacco, lottery's borderline, because, you know, but when it comes to fuel, I don't see it being a reason. And to be clear here, I used to train age-related sales. So again, I do know about this area. Well, anyway, I got an email a few days later that from the store manager. He'd spoken to the area manager as this has gone around internally a bit, and they'd come to the agreement they were no longer going to ask motorcyclists to remove their helmets when you go into that SO. They apologised for the embarrassment and the inconvenience, which I'm very grateful to them for, and as I say, they've overturned that rule. I then went into that store a couple of days after this had happened to see if I could fill up with no problem. No problems at all, went in, ended up meeting the store manager himself, and he shook my hand and said thank you very much, because as it turns out he was getting so much abuse from people over this that it was just, it was really, the guy, he looked beaten up about it, and he was thankful that he didn't have to deal with this anymore. And it, obviously I think, but you know, if he's the manager and the area manager has told you to do something, you can't overturn that ruling, but if someone comes forward and complains about it enough, they may overturn it. I did add a small bit in my email which might have helped tilt this in this direction, which is that I mentioned that I am one of the larger motorcycle YouTube channels in the country, and I don't normally do stuff like that. I like to work as almost like undercover, so I can see how other people will be treated. But I knew what answer I would get if I went to them as a normal person who wouldn't say, you know, I said, look, I'm going to make a video about this most likely, so your response, or lack of, will be mentioned. And as I say, hands up, fantastic. Couldn't ask any better from Eurogarage to just say, yeah, fair play. Sorry about that. We won't ask anymore. And that's my point. If you want to get something done, if you want to get something solved, having a go at the person in the store is not going to work. Going on social media and moaning about it isn't going to work. You have to ask the right questions to the right people. And as I say, that was a branch falling out of a tree. Sorry, I got really distracted then. There's a squirrel up there. So you have to ask the right people the right questions, and that was, why are you doing this? And keep progressing it, because I knew what the answer was. It wasn't some security thing that they could, you know, write on a piece of paper. Well, the same thing is, you look like a thief when you're on a motorcycle, so that's why. They're never going to say that, even though we all know that's the reason. So if you have a local place, a local garage, that asks you to remove your helmet, and you have a problem with that, I suggest speaking to the manager politely and asking why. Find out who it is that requests this, and go up the next level and do what I did and hope that they all see sense. Because, as I've said, I don't like being accused of and inconvenienced because of the accusation of being a criminal or a thief on the basis that I choose to ride a motorcycle. One thing I should have mentioned in there is that when I said about my helmet, I did also refer to it as PPE, because it is PPE. It's there to protect us. It shouldn't be getting damaged because someone else thinks that we might be a thief, if you know what I mean. So yes, I'm not expecting some medal or anything, because I did this completely selfishly. I was thinking of myself when I spoke to them, but by proxy, this is helping other bikers who don't want to remove their helmets either in that garage. And as I say, this is just a story as to explain how you get things to change in the world, not pointless things like, as I say, the things that I've mentioned. If you like this video, please do like the video. If you want to help support this channel, please consider doing that through Patreon. If you've got any stories along these lines, or you try to overturn some ruling that's in one of your local places, as I say, don't be rude, do not swear, do not insult people, do not be personal, just ask the right questions in a polite way. And as long as you ask the right questions and they don't just flatly ignore you, you find results follow quite quickly. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.